I was halfway through my promotion speech when Victor took the microphone from my hands. No warning, no smile, just cold fingers closing around the mic. The crowd laughed nervously. They thought it was part of the show. Husband and wife, celebrating together. The perfect power couple. Until he opened his mouth. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said, his voice dripping with mock tenderness. "But while we're all here celebrating Elise becoming partner, I thought it was also the right time to share some personal news." He turned to face me, eyes flat. "I'm leaving you." Laughter, at first. Then silence. Then gasps. And Victor, he savored it. "The truth is," he continued, as the room turned to ice, "Elise and I have grown apart. And I've found someone new. Someone who makes me feel alive again. I just thought it was time everyone knew." The screen behind us, meant to show my career highlights, now filled with photos of him and his new girlfriend. Our assistant, grinning, kissing, happy. Someone dropped a glass. I heard someone murmur, "Is this real?" It was. I stood there, holding my award, the cameras capturing every angle of my humiliation. Victor placed a hand on my shoulder like I was a dying relative. "No hard feelings, Elise. Let's toast to new beginnings, shall we?" The crowd didn't know what to do. Some clapped. Some stared at the floor. My CEO's face turned a shade I'd never seen before. "And me?" I smiled. Because what no one in that room understood, what Victor never suspected, was that I saw this coming weeks ago. I read the emails. I heard the late-night calls. I knew. And I let him do it. Because Victor Clark loved to humiliate people in public. But what he didn't know was how much better I was at doing it in private. Tonight, he thought he broke me. Tomorrow, he'd realize I let him break himself. And the only reason I was still standing on that stage was because I wanted him to look me in the eye when the walls closed in. By the time I walked off that stage, my phone was already vibrating with the headlines. Victor Clark ends marriage. On stage, announces affair with assistant. Elise Carter's public breakdown at promotion gala. There was no breakdown, but that didn't matter. Perception was everything. Victor made sure the narrative spread faster than I could blink. Photos of me frozen on stage, the award still in my hand, made the front page of every business blog by dawn. They called it a legendary takedown, an iconic power move. I was the punchline. And Victor? He was the hero of his own sick story. By Monday morning, my calendar was empty. My access to the firm's servers revoked. The projects I built from the ground up? Reassigned. The board issued a cold statement. "We respect Ms. Carter's personal time as she navigates this transition." Personal time. That's what they called it when they shoved you out the door and locked it behind you. Victor's assistant, now his fiancée, moved into my office within days. She posted photos of herself sitting at my desk, wearing my old blazer, captioning them, "Time for fresh blood." I let her. I let all of them believe I was crawling into a corner to cry. I even moved into a dump of a motel outside the city where no one would see me. I kept the lights off, let them think I was hiding. But I wasn't hiding. I was watching. Victor wanted me to vanish. He needed me erased before the audits hit. He knew the fake documents he planted under my name wouldn't stand up to scrutiny if I was still around, still sharp, still asking the right questions. That's why he staged the takedown now, before the fiscal year closed, before the firm's books opened for review. He wanted me gone. So I disappeared. On the outside. Inside, I was alive in a way I hadn't been in years. I combed through every piece of data I had saved, the files Victor never knew I'd backed up, contracts with fake suppliers, inflated invoices, shady consulting fees, laundered through dummy companies. It was worse than I thought. Victor wasn't just stealing. He was framing me to take the fall. When the fraud exploded, the signatures on the approvals would be mine. He built the perfect story. The ambitious wife, cracking under pressure, making sloppy mistakes that took down the firm. I could almost admire it. Almost. Except I had the one thing he didn't. Time. Victor was in the spotlight now, gorging on interviews, podcasts, magazine covers, talking about growth, new beginnings, finding love in unexpected places. He was so busy celebrating his win, he never noticed the people closest to him starting to squirm. Employees, he overworked. Vendors, he stiffed. Assistants, he screamed at. They weren't loyal, they were scared. And scared people? They leak. All I had to do was sit still and wait for them to come to me. Which they did. One by one. An email here, a file there. A tip whispered over a burner phone. They didn't know it yet, but they were handing me the noose. I wouldn't strike yet. Not until the entire room was watching. Victor took everything from me in front of an audience. He thought public humiliation was the end. But he forgot the oldest rule, the one he taught me. The bigger the stage, the harder the fall. And I was about to give him a front row seat. The hardest part wasn't the humiliation. It was the silence that came after. The silence of people pretending they never knew me. The silence of doors that once opened at the sound of my name now staying locked. The silence of clients I had wined, dined, and delivered multi-million-dollar projects for, now ghosting me like I was contagious. That silence? I wore it like armor. For weeks, I sat in that motel room, surrounded by empty takeout containers and the kind of beige wallpaper that sucked the life out of a room. It should have felt like defeat. It didn't. It felt like freedom. No more pretending. No more smiling through the boardroom politics. No more carrying Victor's ego on my back while he fed off my work. For the first time in years, I wasn't keeping the peace. I was planning a war. The data Victor had tried to bury was meticulous. Every forgery, every cooked number, every fake approval signed Elise Carter in perfect digital cursive. He had spent months building the paper trail that would bury me. But what he didn't know? I'd built my own trail. Backup files, off-site drives, paper copies, hidden redundancies I kept out of habit, out of paranoia, out of a need for control. He thought I was sloppy. He never understood how dangerous I could be when I stopped caring about optics. I mapped it all, laid it out on the motel floor like a crime scene, traced the shell companies, the offshore accounts, the bribed city officials. Victor wasn't just cheating. He was laundering, hiding millions under fake sustainability initiatives, greenwashing projects that existed only on paper. And he was using my name to do it. But I couldn't go after him alone. I needed someone who hated him as much as I did. That's when I made the call I never thought I'd make. Gabrielle Stone. The woman Victor had always called my rival, the shark, the bitch. The woman he warned me about in every board meeting. She answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd finally call," she said. No hello, no small talk. We met the next day in a dive bar where no one would recognize us. She slid a folder across the table. Names, contacts. Dirt Victor had used to bury others before me. "He's done this before," she said, sipping whiskey. "But you're the first one he did it to in public. That makes him sloppy. And sloppiness? That's an opportunity." We didn't toast. We made a pact. Gabrielle would handle the investors, the lawyers, the regulators. I would provide the files, the proof, the inside knowledge of Victor's patterns. We wouldn't just ruin him. We'd erase him. Every whisper, every scandal, every anonymous tip. All carefully timed. Controlled chaos. Victor would never see it coming, because he was still too busy playing the hero. I watched him from the shadows as he paraded his new fiancée on talk shows, grinned at ribbon cuttings, sold the lie of his perfect life. He thought I was broken. I let him. Because men like Victor always mistake silence for weakness. He wanted me to disappear. I wanted him to think I had. Because when I finally stepped back into the light, it would be to watch him drown in it. Victor Clark believed he'd won. That's what made it so easy to let him bask in it. While he booked keynote speeches, posed for glossy magazine spreads, and made smug jokes on podcasts about finding happiness after betrayal, Gabrielle and I pulled every string behind the curtain. We called it the long game. The industry loved a redemption arc. Victor knew how to sell it. His personal healing memoir went straight to the bestseller list. He launched a fake charity for women in architecture, a final grotesque twist of the knife. He used my name as the cautionary tale, the washed-up wife who couldn't handle the pressure. But the more he pushed his narrative, the more exposed he became, and we made sure to widen those cracks. We fed anonymous tips to the press, nothing overt, just whispers. Is Victor Clark's sudden rise too perfect? Where is the funding for his new green developments really coming from? The media bit hard. They couldn't resist a hero with dirty boots. We fed them fabricated scandals first. Make it messy. Make it chaotic. Drown him in noise so the real bomb, the blueprint, would hit him when he was scrambling. Gabrielle was ruthless. She'd spent her entire career cleaning up men like Victor, but this time she wasn't cleaning up. She was dismantling. One of Victor's biggest investors folded under the pressure of a leaked sex scandal we engineered using an old affair Victor had buried. Another partner resigned when an internal memo, doctored but believable, accused him of harassment. Victor screamed sabotage on every platform that would still give him airtime. No one believed him, because they believed the lies first. By the time we fed the regulators the real evidence, the fraud, the laundering, the bribery, Victor's credibility was already in tatters. Every lawsuit, every audit, every leak? Orchestrated. We played chess while he flailed on checkers, and all the while I let him believe I was still hiding in that motel licking my wounds. He never saw me. Not at the industry galas, not at the investor dinners, not at the awards where Gabrielle and I quietly sat in the back, watching him gloat under lights that burned brighter than ever. Because the brighter they burn you, the harder the collapse. The blueprint was our masterpiece. Every fake invoice, every offshore account, every email where he instructed his assistant to bury the numbers and make Carter look sloppy. It was all cataloged. We stored it in data vaults across continents. No one could erase it now. Not even Victor's most expensive lawyers. And we weren't done. We wanted to make sure when the curtain fell, it took down everyone who propped him up. The board that stayed silent. The investors who looked the other way. The media outlets that protected him. We fed the regulators' names. We sent the tax office's files. We sent the media the blueprint's highlight reel. But the grand finale, that was personal. It had to be. The International Architecture Gala, the same stage where he ripped the ground out from under me. He was set to win Architect of the Year. He spent months bribing the judges, silencing critics, paying off influencers to smear anyone who questioned his rise. We let him. We let him book the venue, invite the celebrities, craft the speech. We let him build his moment. Because men like Victor, they can't resist the stage. They don't know how to survive in the shadows. And that was my domain now. When the night came, he strutted into the ballroom like a king. His fiancée draped on his arm, her dress worth more than my old house. He waved at the cameras, blew kisses to the crowd, took selfies, smiled for the magazines. He didn't see me. I was already inside. Gabrielle and I had bought out the media tables, invited the regulators as honored guests, sent the leaked files to every phone in the room right before the awards started. Victor was called to the stage. He basked in it, took the mic, opened his mouth, and the screens behind him exploded to life. The blueprint. Not just spreadsheets, footage, audio, emails, witnesses. Victor Clark, the thief, the fraud, the abuser. His words stuck in his throat. The room gasped. His investors walked out. His fiancée fled the table. And when the federal agents approached the stage, badge in hand, I walked into the spotlight. No trembling, no rage, just me and him. Face to face. Victor Clark, you are under federal investigation for fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy, the agent said. Victor looked at me like I'd betrayed him. I smiled. I told you, Victor, the bigger the stage, the harder the fall. Security led him out in cuffs. But I wasn't done. I took the mic, addressed the room. This is not just about Victor Clark, I said. This is about every boardroom that protected him, every partner that looked away, every media outlet that made him a hero. Tonight, you don't just see who he is, you see who you let him become. Silence. No applause. Just the sound of his empire collapsing. And me? I walked off that stage without looking back. Because his show was over. Mine was just beginning. The headlines didn't even wait for sunrise this time. Victor Clark arrested on stage. Fraud, conspiracy, and betrayal exposed live at gala. The photos went viral within hours. Him in handcuffs, face crumpled into something between disbelief and rage, as the federal agents led him past the crowd that once worshipped him. No more applause, no more fake smiles, no more staged photo ops. He looked like what he always was, a coward who mistook arrogance for power. But the real show didn't end at the gala. It only started there. The regulators wasted no time. Search warrants were executed across his firm's offices in 4 countries. His personal accounts frozen, his properties seized, his so-called charity shut down. He tried to deny it all, blamed hackers, blamed me, blamed Gabrielle, blamed the toxic cancel culture he had once weaponized to destroy others. But no one believed him, because the evidence didn't lie. And it was everywhere. We made sure of it. Gabrielle handled the media like the seasoned killer she was. Every news cycle flooded with stories from former employees, clients, investors, all sharing the truth about Victor Clark, the man who charmed them into deals, manipulated them into silence, bled them dry. Victor's face became a meme. His fall, the industry's cautionary tale. His name, scrubbed from projects, awards, articles. He tried to file lawsuits from prison. They were laughed out of court. He wrote open letters. Pathetic, hollow apologies written by a PR team he couldn't afford anymore. I never read them. Because this wasn't about him anymore. This was about everyone who helped him rise. And I didn't let them off the hook. Gabrielle and I dismantled the firm piece by piece. We exposed the board members who covered up his crimes, the partners who signed off on his fake projects, the investors who looked away. They all paid. Some resigned. Some faced investigations. Some begged for settlements. We refused. I made it clear. This wasn't a private grudge. This was a purge. We took over contracts, absorbed clients, poached talent, and we did it publicly. We built Carter and Stone on the ashes of Victor's empire, not as a firm, as a movement. Women-led, transparent, ruthless. We trained women to see the red flags Victor hid behind charm and fake vulnerability. We gave them tools to outplay men like him at their own game. Victor's former partners tried to cozy up, pretended they always respected me, offered me seats at the same tables they once pushed me away from. I didn't take them. I built my own table, and they lined up for scraps. I didn't feel satisfaction watching them grovel. I felt clean, free. Victor Clark was sentenced to 22 years without parole. The courtroom overflowed with victims. Some cried, some cheered. I sat silent in the front row. He looked for me when the judge read the verdict. I met his eyes, and I smiled. Not with anger, with indifference. That cut deeper than anything, because he finally understood. He wasn't the villain in my story anymore. He wasn't anything. He tried to send me letters from prison, long, rambling monologues about how I ruined us, how I was always ungrateful. I returned them, shredded. He didn't deserve my words. He never would again. The house he bought for his new fiancée? I bought it at auction for pennies on the dollar. I turned it into a transitional home for women fleeing men like him. The irony was poetic, but I didn't do it for poetry. I did it because I knew there were more victors out there, and they'd never see me coming. At the next industry gala, I took the stage again. But this time, I didn't talk about Victor Clark. I talked about women who build, women who lead, women who rewrite the rules. And when I left the stage, the applause followed me. The same people who once clapped for my destruction now clapped for my legacy. And I didn't need them. I walked out of that ballroom taller than ever. Victor thought he'd written the final chapter of my story the night he stole the mic from my hands. He was wrong. He never even understood what story he was in. Because I wasn't the woman who survived. I was the woman who erased him. 6 months later, Victor Clark was just another inmate. No more private jets, no more black cards, no more stages. His name barely registered in the headlines now, a faded cautionary tale in the footnotes of industry scandals. Even the tabloids had moved on to fresher meat. Victor Clark was old news. And I was exactly where I wanted to be. Carter & Stone was more than a firm now. It was a fortress. We weren't just taking clients. We were taking over markets, rewriting codes of conduct, advising boards on how to recognize predators before they became CEOs. Our team? Women who had been silenced, pushed out, blacklisted. Now they ran the show. And the same investors who once ghosted me? They lined up, checkbooks in hand, begging to get through the door. We let them sweat. Victor tried to get messages to me through old colleagues, through lawyers, even through his brother. He wanted me to know he was sick, that he had nothing left, that he'd learned his lesson. I never replied, because there was nothing left to say. Victor Clark didn't get closure. He got the same silence he once weaponized against me. Some nights, I drove past the prison. I didn't stop. I didn't look. I wasn't there to see him. I was there to remind myself what happened when you let men like Victor Clark tell your story. You lose yourself. And I wasn't losing myself ever again. I spent my evenings quietly now. No galas, no panels, no acceptance speeches. I sat on the balcony of my apartment, a space that was mine, that no one could take from me. And I sketched. Not buildings, not projects, ideas, blueprints for systems that would outlast me, legacies that couldn't be dismantled by egos in suits. The house I bought from Victor's bankruptcy auction became the Key House, a refuge for women in the industry who'd been crushed, discarded, betrayed. The women Victor called weak? They were now the strongest force I'd ever seen. They didn't need to know my story. They just needed space. Victor Clark never understood that. He thought the world was about the loudest voice, the flashiest stunt, the most brutal betrayal. But legacy? Legacy was quiet. It was the door you opened for someone else after yours was slammed in your face. That's what I left behind. Not my name on buildings, not awards, not headlines, but a path no man like Victor Clark could ever erase. And if you've ever stood on a stage holding your dignity in one hand while they laughed in your face, remember this. They don't get to write your ending. You do, always.